The avoidant maintains distance after relationship ended or after their patterns created separation, not because they desire distance, but because they experience specific psychological conflict about returning to person they harmed through their defended patterns. They recognize through your expressions of hurt, through your established boundaries, through your departure or your implementation of no contact, that their behaviors caused you genuine pain. Recognize their withdrawal created confusion and anxiety. Their inconsistency generated insecurity and doubt. Their emotional unavailability left your needs unmet, creating suffering. Their patterns or their betrayal violated your trust, creating harm they cannot deny or minimize despite defended tendencies toward minimization. This recognition creates defended shame about having harmed someone they value, creates uncomfortable awareness that they were inadequate partner whose patterns hurt person, who demonstrated exceptional patience and understanding, creates guilt about causing pain to someone who accommodated their limitations extensively. The shame and guilt generate specific avoidance of contact with you, because contact would require facing the harm they created, would require seeing your hurt, acknowledging their responsibility, tolerating your legitimate anger or disappointment, sitting with uncomfortable feelings their harmful behaviors deserve generating. The avoidance through staying away serves defensive function, protecting them from having to face consequences of their patterns, protects from having to see evidence of harm in your reactions, protects from having to acknowledge accountability that facing you would require, protects from having to experience the shame and guilt that direct contact with harmed person activates more intensely than distance allows. Yet staying away conflicts with what they actually want, which is reconnection with you. Conflicts because they miss functions you provided, misunderstanding you offered, mispresence that stabilized their defended life, misrelationship despite their patterns making relationship unsustainable. This internal conflict creates specific suffering where they simultaneously want to reach out yet feel they should stay away. Want reconnection yet believe staying away is what they deserve as consequence of harm or is what you need for your healing. Want to explain or apologize yet fear contact would harm you further or would be rejected, creating additional shame they cannot tolerate. The conflict manifests through them, monitoring you from distance without direct contact. Manifests through checking your social media, through asking mutual friends about you, through remaining aware of your life while maintaining physical and communicative distance. The monitoring reveals they have not released you emotionally despite physical distance, reveals they remain oriented toward you, remain wanting connection, remain hoping for eventual possibility of reconnection, once sufficient time has passed, or once they believe staying away has adequately demonstrated respect for harm they caused. Understanding that avoidance stays away, despite not wanting distance, reveals their internal conflict, yet does not obligate your response to that conflict. Their staying away, while wanting connection, creates their problem to resolve, creates their choice between continuing defended avoidance of facing harm they caused versus choosing to genuinely address patterns through therapeutic work and to take accountability through direct communication, accepting whatever response you provide. Their conflict is not your responsibility to resolve through reaching out to them, through making contact easier for them, through absolving their guilt or minimizing harm to reduce their shame. Their staying away despite wanting connection reveals they continue choosing defended comfort over vulnerable action, continue choosing protection from shame over facing consequences, continue choosing avoidance over accountability, continue prioritizing their defended emotional management over demonstrating through action that they value reconnection enough to face uncomfortable feelings. Their harmful patterns deserve generating. They believe staying away is the right thing while desperately wanting to return. The avoidant develops specific narrative that staying away represents morally correct choice after recognizing their patterns hurt you, develops narrative positioning distance as respectful response to harm, as allowing you space to heal, as preventing additional hurt that their presence might create, as demonstrating they care about your well-being enough to deprive themselves of connection they want, for sake of your recovery from harm they caused. This narrative frames staying away as noble sacrifice, frames as them putting your needs above their desires, as them doing difficult right thing despite personal cost, as them demonstrating growth through respecting boundaries and consequences rather than selfishly pursuing reconnection that would serve their needs while potentially harming you further. The noble sacrifice framing serves specific defensive function by transforming their avoidance of accountability into virtuous choice, transforms their fear of facing your hurt into respectful space giving, transforms their shame-driven withdrawal into considerate boundary respecting, transforms their continued defended pattern of creating distance into mature recognition that distance serves your healing. Yet beneath noble sacrifice narrative exists desperate desire to return to relationship and to restore connection with you. The desire manifests through their continued orientation toward your life, manifests through monitoring your social media obsessively looking for signs of how you are doing or whether you have moved on, manifests through maintaining awareness of your activities, through mutual connections who provide updates, manifests through them keeping themselves available and unattached, hoping you might eventually reach out inviting reconnection. The desire also manifests through internal experience. They may share with close friends or family, manifests through expressing how much they miss you, through communicating regret about patterns that caused harm, through wondering whether enough time has passed that reaching out would be acceptable rather than harmful, through hoping you will eventually forgive them and will want reconnection as much as they want it, despite their staying away suggesting they have moved on, when actually they remain stuck, wanting connection they believe they should not pursue. The conflict between believing staying away is right and desperately wanting to return creates specific suffering for avoidant trapped between competing motivations. They experience longing for you that distance does not diminish, experience missing your presence, missing functions you provided, missing sense of being understood that relationship offered. Yet they simultaneously experience belief that pursuing you would be selfish or harmful, believe that you need space from them, believe that contact would hurt you or would be unwelcome, believe that staying away demonstrates respect and growth even while staying away conflicts with what they desperately want. The competing motivations create paralysis, where they neither fully move on nor actively pursue reconnection. Neither because moving on feels impossible while they remain wanting you, yet pursuing reconnection feels wrong based on narrative that staying away is morally correct response to having caused harm. The right thing narrative particularly serves to protect their ego while avoiding vulnerable accountability. Positioning staying away as noble sacrifice allows them to feel morally superior, allows them to believe they are doing difficult, mature thing rather than facing they are avoiding uncomfortable accountability, allows them to frame their avoidance as respect rather than recognizing avoidance as continued defended pattern. The narrative prevents them from taking genuine accountability, which would require direct contact, acknowledging harm, expressing remorse, accepting whatever response you provide, whether that response is forgiveness or is maintained boundaries. Genuine accountability requires vulnerability. They avoid through staying away, requires facing your hurt directly, requires tolerating your anger or disappointment, requires accepting possible rejection if you have moved on or if you maintain boundaries protecting yourself from person whose patterns proved harmful. Understanding that they believe staying away is right while wanting to return reveals their continued defended functioning, rather than revealing genuine growth or respect for your needs. If staying away genuinely served your well-being and genuinely demonstrated their growth, they would communicate directly, would reach out acknowledging harm, taking accountability, expressing that they are staying away because they recognize you need space, yet want you to know they are doing therapeutic work, addressing patterns, want you to know they remain hoping for eventual possibility of demonstrating through sustained behavioral change that they have developed capacity to provide adequate partnership if you ever choose to give them opportunity. Instead, staying away without communication serves their defended needs, serves their avoidance of accountability, serves their protection from shame, serves their continued pattern of withdrawal, rather than demonstrating genuine respect for your needs or genuine commitment to addressing patterns that created harm requiring their current noble sacrifice-framed defensive avoidance they mistake for mature, respectful choice. The distance protects them from facing the shame of their inadequacy, not from harming you further. The avoidant frames their distance as protecting you from additional harm, frames as recognition that their patterns hurt you and that staying away prevents continued hurt, frames as respectful withdrawal, giving you space to heal from damage their inadequacy created, frames as them taking responsibility through removing themselves rather than continuing to subject you to defended limitations that relationship proved they could not overcome despite your patience and accommodation. This protective framing positions distance as serving your needs, positions as them prioritizing your well-being over their desire for connection, as them making difficult choice for your benefit rather than for their comfort, as them demonstrating care through absence rather than through continued presence that would subject you to patterns they recognize as harmful. Yet, actual function of distance is protecting them from facing shame of their inadequacy rather than protecting you from further harm. The shame stems from recognizing they were inadequate partner whose patterns hurt person who did not deserve hurt. Stems from facing they could not reciprocate your exceptional patience and understanding, could not honor your accommodation through adequate effort, could not sustain relationship despite your providing ideal conditions, including understanding of their wounds and tolerance of their defended limitations. The recognition of inadequacy creates profound shame. Their defended psychology lacks effective tools to manage. Creates because defended identity includes belief they are adequate or even superior person whose patterns are justified or tolerable. Creates because facing they were inadequate partner who harmed generous understanding person contradicts defended self-concept, requiring either restructuring self-concept or avoiding situations that activate shame about inadequacy. Distance protects from shame by eliminating situations that would force facing inadequacy directly. Contact with you would mean seeing your hurt, which would activate shame about causing that hurt. Contact would mean hearing about impact their patterns had, which would activate shame about being person whose behaviors created harm. Contact would mean facing your anger or disappointment, which would activate shame about failing to meet standards that exceptionally tolerant partner eventually had to establish protecting themselves from continued inadequacy. Contact would mean potentially being rejected if you have moved on, which would activate shame about losing valuable partner through their inadequacy rather than through external circumstances beyond their control. The distance eliminates all these shame-activating situations, eliminates by keeping them physically and communicatively separate from evidence of their inadequacy that your presence and your reactions would force them to face. The protective distance narrative also serves to avoid accountability that facing you would require. Genuine accountability means directly acknowledging harm to person you harmed, means looking them in eyes and saying, "My behaviors hurt you, I take full responsibility, I understand the impact my patterns had on your well-being." Genuine accountability means accepting whatever response harmed person provides, means accepting their anger without defensiveness, accepting their boundaries without attempting to negotiate, accepting their choice to move on without attempting to change their decision. Genuine accountability means tolerating discomfort that facing harmed person generates, means sitting with shame, sitting with guilt, sitting with consequences that behaviors deserved without defending or minimizing or seeking absolution that would relieve uncomfortable feelings. Distance allows avoiding this genuine accountability by positioning themselves as respectfully staying away rather than as defendedly avoiding uncomfortable facing of consequences. They can maintain belief they are doing right thing through staying away, can maintain without having to face whether right thing is actually defended avoidance, can maintain without having to examine whether you actually need their absence or whether you need their genuine accountability that absence prevents them from providing. They can maintain noble sacrifice narrative, can maintain without testing whether narrative is accurate or is defensive rationalization, can maintain without risking that approaching you for genuine accountability might reveal they are avoiding rather than genuinely respecting your needs. Understanding that distance protects them from shame rather than protecting you from harm reveals their continued defended functioning. If distance genuinely served your protection, they would have communicated that intention, would have said directly, "I recognize my patterns harmed you. I am staying away to give you space to heal. I want you to know I am doing therapeutic work addressing patterns, and I hope eventually to demonstrate change capacity if you ever want that, but I respect that you may need permanent distance and I accept whatever you choose." Instead, distance without communication serves their protection, protects their defended ego from facing shame, protects their defended psychology from accountability's discomfort, protects their continued pattern of avoidance, rather than demonstrating genuine growth that would require facing you directly, taking accountability vulnerably, accepting whatever consequences their inadequacy deserves, rather than avoiding consequences through defended distance they frame as noble sacrifice serving your needs when actually serves their defended protection from shame. Their inadequacy would activate if they stopped avoiding and started genuinely facing harm their patterns created. They monitor your healing, hoping you'll eventually invite them back, taking no action themselves. The avoidant maintains awareness of your life and your healing process despite physical distance. Maintains through checking your social media regularly, tracking your activities and your emotional state through what you post. Maintains through asking mutual friends about you, gathering information about whether you are moving on or whether you remain affected by relationship ending. Maintains through keeping themselves informed about your dating status, monitoring whether you have pursued new relationships, suggesting you have released them, or whether you remain single, suggesting possibility you might still want reconnection. This monitoring reveals they have not released you emotionally despite distance, reveals they remain oriented toward you, remain invested in your life, remain hoping for eventual reconnection even while they maintain distance, supposedly allowing you space to heal. The monitoring particularly focuses on signs that you might be ready to invite them back, focuses on whether your social media suggests you have processed hurt and have forgiven them, focuses on whether your interactions with mutual friends suggest you speak about them with softness rather than anger indicating healed feelings, focuses on whether you appear happy and recovered, suggesting you are in stable enough place that reconnection would not harm you further. They watch for invitation, watch for you reaching out to them directly, watch for you asking mutual friends about them, suggesting interest in their life, watch for you posting content that could be interpreted as message to them, suggesting you want contact. The watching is passive waiting, is them hoping you will make first move toward reconnection rather than them taking action, approaching you to genuinely account for harm or to demonstrate change capacity through evidence of therapeutic work. Yet while they monitor hoping for invitation, they take no action themselves, demonstrating genuine change or genuine accountability. They do not engage trauma-informed therapy, addressing defended patterns that caused harm, do not because defended resistance to vulnerable therapeutic work exceeds their desire for reconnection, do not because they hope your eventual invitation will restore relationship without them having to do uncomfortable growth work. They do not reach out taking genuine accountability, do not acknowledge harm directly to you, do not express remorse, accepting full responsibility, do not communicate what they are doing to address patterns that created harm, do not demonstrate through vulnerable direct contact that they value reconnection enough to face discomfort accountability requires. They do not demonstrate behavioral changes that would evidence capacity to provide different relationship experience, do not develop emotional availability, do not build consistency, do not practice vulnerability in other contexts that would indicate developed capacity for intimate engagement. The passive waiting for your invitation serves specific defensive function, allowing them to avoid vulnerability and risk while maintaining hope for reconnection. If you invite them back, reconnection occurs without them having to risk rejection, occurs without them having to approach you vulnerably. Accepting you might refuse contact, occurs without them having to face shame of being rejected by person they harmed, occurs without them having to demonstrate change capacity before reconnection, proving change is genuine rather than being crisis-driven temporary performance. If you invite them back, they avoid having to take accountability, avoid having to initiate difficult conversation, acknowledging harm, avoid having to sit with your reactions without defending, avoid having to accept full responsibility rather than sharing blame or minimizing impact. If you invite them back, they restore comfortable position without having to change patterns, restore access to functions you provided, restore relationships serving their defended needs, restore equilibrium without having to do therapeutic work or develop capacities their defended limitations prevent them from providing. The monitoring while waiting also reveals they want you to do the work of reconnection, want you to process your hurt, forgive their patterns, decide you want them back, reach out inviting reconnection, essentially do all relationship work while they remain passive waiting to receive invitation, restoring relationship without their active effort or vulnerable risk. This expectation continues the pattern from original relationship, where you did maximum relationship work while they provided minimum. Continues expectation you will pursue while they remain defended and passive. Continues dynamic, where you take responsibility for relationship maintenance while they benefit from your effort without adequate reciprocation. The continued pattern proves distance has not generated growth or change, proves they remain same defended person, expecting you to accommodate, to pursue, to take relational risks while they wait comfortably protected from vulnerability and from consequences. Understanding that they monitor hoping for invitation while taking no action protects you from interpreting their continued awareness of your life as evidence of genuine caring or changed capacity. Their monitoring reveals they remain wanting you, yet wanting is not sufficient for relationship. Wanting without action demonstrates continued defended patterns. If they genuinely wanted reconnection enough to deserve it, they would demonstrate through action, would engage therapy proving commitment to addressing patterns, would reach out taking vulnerable accountability, accepting whatever response you provide, would demonstrate through sustained behavioral changes across time that capacity exists to provide adequate partnership rather than expecting your invitation to restore relationship, allowing them to resume defended comfortable position without doing work. Genuine change requires. Their monitoring while waiting proves they want relationship benefits you provided without wanting to do vulnerable work. Sustaining relationship requires, proves they hope your forgiveness and your invitation allow restoration without their transformation, ensuring reconnection, would recreate harmful dynamic their unchanged capacity would inevitably generate. What they actually want is your forgiveness without having earned it through genuine change. The avoidance, staying away while desperately wanting to return, reveals specific underlying desire that explains their conflict and their passive monitoring. Reveals they want your forgiveness, restoring relationship without them having to earn forgiveness through demonstrating genuine changed capacity. They want you to process your hurt and decide to forgive them based on understanding their patterns stemmed from wounds rather than from intentional cruelty, want you to extend compassion, recognizing they struggled with intimacy due to childhood experiences, rather than holding them accountable for adult choices to continue patterns without therapeutic intervention. They want you to miss them enough that missing overcomes hurt, leading you to invite reconnection, want you to decide relationship, despite its problems, was better than being without them, want you to lower standards, accepting their defended limitations as acceptable rather than requiring adequate partnership. They want forgiveness to come from you unearned through their effort. Want you to decide sufficient time has passed that forgiveness is appropriate, regardless of whether they addressed patterns. Want you to extend grace forgiving them, despite absence of evidence, proving they developed capacity to provide different relationship experience. Want you to take risk of reconnection without them having demonstrated, through sustained therapeutic work and behavioral change, that risk is justified by genuine transformation. The desire for unearned forgiveness serves their defended needs perfectly, serves by restoring relationship without requiring vulnerable therapeutic work they resist, serves by allowing them to maintain defended patterns while accessing relationship benefits, serves by positioning your forgiveness as gift they receive rather than as something they earn through demonstrating changed capacity deserving of second chance. The desire for unearned forgiveness particularly reveals they have not genuinely examined or addressed patterns that caused harm. Genuine examination would lead to recognizing that forgiveness should be earned through them doing therapeutic work, addressing defensive structure, should be earned through demonstrating sustained behavioral changes, proving capacity to honor relationship agreements, should be earned through taking vulnerable accountability, accepting full responsibility rather than expecting you to extend forgiveness, absolving them without their doing work, deserving absolution. Genuine address of patterns would lead to them approaching you with evidence, approaching with information about therapy they have engaged, approaching with demonstrated changes maintained across significant time, approaching with humble acknowledgement that they have no right to expect forgiveness, yet want to show you they have done work, developing capacity to provide adequate partnership if you ever choose to risk giving them opportunity to demonstrate transformation. Yet they do not approach with evidence of earned forgiveness. They wait, hoping you will extend unearned forgiveness through your invitation. They stay away, avoiding accountability, while hoping time creates forgiveness they have not worked to deserve. They monitor passively rather than actively demonstrating through therapeutic engagement and sustained behavioral change that they value reconnection enough to do uncomfortable work, earning rather than expecting your grace to provide what their effort refuses to generate. The waiting for unearned forgiveness proves they want relationship restoration without personal transformation, want you to accept them as they are, including their defended limitations, want to resume comfortable position where your accommodation allows their continued patterns, want relationship benefits without relationship responsibilities that earning forgiveness through genuine change would require them accepting and fulfilling. Understanding they want unearned forgiveness protects you from extending forgiveness prematurely based on their apparent suffering or based on your compassion for their wounds. Their wanting reconnection is real. They genuinely miss you, genuinely want relationship restored. Yet genuine wanting without genuine work to earn restoration reveals they want what serves them without wanting to do what serves building healthy, sustainable partnership. Forgiveness is gift you can choose to extend. Yet extending forgiveness to unchanged person recreates dynamic where your grace enables their defended avoidance, where your compassion prevents consequences that might motivate growth, where your accommodation allows patterns to continue harming you while they receive relationship benefits. Their unchanged defended capacity does not deserve accessing, because unchanged capacity will recreate harm, requiring you to again choose between continuing to sacrifice yourself for person refusing growth work or protecting yourself through establishing boundaries. Their patterns prove necessary, despite their desire for your unearned forgiveness, allowing restoration without their earned transformation. The avoidant staying away while wanting return reveals their internal conflict, reveals they recognize they hurt you, yet lack capacity to vulnerably face harm, reveals they want reconnection, yet fear accountability, reveals they hope for restoration, yet refuse therapeutic work. Their conflict is theirs to resolve through choosing vulnerable accountability and genuine therapeutic engagement over continued defended avoidance. Your role is not to resolve their conflict through extending invitation or through providing unearned forgiveness. Your role is to maintain standards requiring that anyone wanting reconnection demonstrates earned worthiness through sustained therapeutic work, through genuine accountability vulnerably offered, through behavioral changes maintained across time. Proving capacity exists to provide healthy partnership rather than recreating harmful dynamic, their unchanged defended patterns and their desire for unearned forgiveness without earned transformation would inevitably generate if you extended grace they want without doing work. That earning your forgiveness and deserving reconnection absolutely requires, before relationship restoration should even be considered as possibility worthy of your vulnerable risk and your precious renewed investment.